Cool. Good to see you all. Day 29. Closer and closer and closer. Hope you're all feeling good, despite the fact that we have, almost 30 days behind us. I hope the fact that we're at the finish line has actually amped you up and inspired you. And of course, that carries on and you just, for whatever reason, keep on practicing, even though the challenge will soon be formally over. Today we're going to do something a little different just because we have a few days left and there's so much more to discuss and so many more details to investigate. So what we're going to do today is we're going to chant a little bit. We're going to chant the Om. And if you're in a house by yourself, I would encourage you to chant loudly and boldly. But if you're in a house with others, chanting softly and quietly is just as effective. So range of volume and a range of intensities that you can sort of maneuver through. But before that, what does chanting do? Always nice to know on a physiological level and a neurological level. A really interesting idea in terms of neurology and physiology, the body and the mind, and its relationship to well-being, which is essentially what we're always attempting to move towards, no matter what we're doing, whether it's what we want to eat, whatever meal we select off a menu, whether it's, who we want to call, who we want to spend our time with, what we want to do in any given day. Everything is a great migration towards this utopia, this potential utopia of well-being or perfect well-being. And along the way, we mature and we realize that life's a little bit more difficult and the path is a bit trickier than we realize. But despite that, it's really cool to appreciate that we're all just aiming for the same thing. We just want to be happy. And so what does chanting have to do with that and the mind-body connection? So that's one thing we're going to talk about. But before that, what does chanting have to do in terms of yogic philosophy, and how does it get us closer to the goal? And again, what is the goal? Yogis believe that our consciousness, so when your hands are at heart center, when your thumb knuckles are touching your forehead and you're attempting to perceive the observer within you and sort of rest within that, eventually you would want to identify as that observer instinctively and genuinely. And so when you reflect or refer to yourself, at least within your head, it's very quick. I'm not this body, I'm not this identity, I'm not this pain, I'm not this success, I'm not the mother, I'm not the father, I'm not the boyfriend, I'm not the girlfriend. I am the observer that perceives these roles, and the observer that perceives and feels my body, and the observer that perceives and experiences the world. And so when you're here, you're attempting to recognize that, and then the idea with your practice and the longevity of your commitment is you would slowly start to sort of unite with that innermost thing. And so everything that is not that innermost thing is tangible. That objective awareness is intangible in yogic thought. More than likely, it's a unique firing or patterning inside the brain that gives us a hallucination of the soul, which is super interesting. We're all sort of hallucinating our realities. But this is how the yogis believe it, and I think it is a really nice way of understanding what we're going for. So everything that is not that is tangible, and everything that is tangible is made of matter, whether it's microscopic and atomic, or whether it is gross and perceivable, like mountains and trees and planets. All of that matter is vibrating, and so this vibration is called spanda. And when we, attempt to meditate or attempt to chant, what we are attempting to do is not just move internally towards that objective awareness, but because we have to sort of salmon swimming upstream, we have to swim through a reality of matter, a reality of vibrating substance. And so if we can feel more and more subtle things, if we can move from the gross to the subtle, from the obvious to the less obvious, that informs us that we're moving in the correct direction towards the intangible. So I hope that makes sense. It gives us a sense of direction through space. And then what are the qualities of substance, of vibration, as we move from the gross to the subtle? The gross, the distant, is defined more intensely by duality, which means that there's a lot of change in the physical world. So there's water and there's stone, There's decay, something like a corpse or a wilted flower, and then there's youth and energy, a child or a beautiful flower. And so the more external and gross matter becomes, the more it is defined by duality. All right, so we're trying to achieve this non-dualistic state. And where we can touch that non-dualistic state, where there is no pain and there is no pleasure, there is no birth, there is no death, there is no striving, and there is no dissatisfaction. It's just like a profound, almost literal peace. Where does that exist in a physical world? It exists in subtle spaces, in subtle sensations. And so what we're attempting to do when we're holding our breath, a really powerful anchor point when you're meditating, is something called sukshma. I've mentioned it before. It's that vibrational sensation, and I hope you all can feel it, but I think some of you have mentioned not too far, or not so long ago, that it was still sort of beyond you or remained elusive. And so chanting will really help us feel sukshma. It'll help us feel the resonance of sound move through our bodies, and that's a really cool stepping stone to feeling this tingling vibration. And so the last sort of Sanskrit term I want to throw at you is the ground of physical being, where all sort of spirit sprouts from, is something called dharmata. Dharmata, again, is the ground of spiritual being. And when we feel sukshma, when we feel the vibratory nature of our bodies and our minds are put into this state of tranquility, the Buddhists, dharmata is a Buddhist term, the Buddhists believe that consciousness has sort of made contact with dharmata, with the common denominator of physical existence. And an interesting idea is that as meditators, we believe we can access that by sharpening our perception. Cool, so a lot of stuff to think about, but it really sort of details the map, the symbolic or philosophical map that the soul is attempting to recognize. and then in that, at the center of the map, again, is this consciousness. And so what's really going on, though? Also helpful to know. We have stress, and every thought, interesting to think, is that our mind is contained within a body. So every thought we have has a corresponding physiological response. And more than likely, it's vice versa. Our thoughts are the consequence of physiological responses that have been entrained over the course of our lives as we've consumed and built our bodies, consciously and unconsciously. And so the mind and the body are not just connected, but they are essentially one. And they're always communicating to each other. The body and mind is always being deregulated by our environments and by stressors fundamentally. And the more our mind and body can communicate, the quicker the body and mind can regulate itself or re-regulate itself and enter homeostasis. So does that make sense? Life is sort of like a tightrope. Winds come and they blow us off our balance all the time. And the better our bodies and our brains can talk to each other, the easier it is for us to reorganize and find a physiological center point, again, which is called homeostasis. The technical terms for this are allostatic load, which is essentially stress put on the body, not necessarily the emotion of stress. Allostasis is the body's ability to regulate that stress or that allostatic load and achieve tranquility and harmony, which is homeostasis. And so how can we facilitate a greater ability to achieve homeostasis and support allostasis, the process of achieving physical balance? Interoception. If I can learn to feel my body, inside my body, feel my heart beating, feel my stomach growling, feel my muscles, feel my density, feel my mass, feel blood flowing, feel tickling and prickling and heat and coolness. If my brain can feel all of that and collect more and more data more and more easily, with all of that data, our bodies and our brains can achieve homeostasis and sort of recoil back into balance much easier than if we over time become more and more numb to our bodies, right? So chanting and creating an experience inside your center line, which is pretty much where everything is, the nerve plexus of the stomach, the nerve plexus of the heart, the vagus nerve, which sort of, it's the 10th cranial nerve, so it comes out of the base of the skull and sort of just moves down the entire torso. And then the brain, through the meditation and the focusing, the more time we spend chanting and literally just feeling our inner bodies, the more we support allostasis and our ability to regulate the mind-body complex. And so all of that, right? Philosophical meaning, actual, literal, value points. And then the last point is this. If you just trust the experience, if you just take the time to chant, you will feel good. It will feel good by itself, and you wouldn't need to know about the philosophies attached to it, and you wouldn't need the evidence of, theories and research. If you just felt your body and were open to what's going on, the experience itself would be enough. And for that reason, the first people that started chanting, that's all they had to go on, and they followed that sort of like instinctive goodness. And so I think that's the most important piece. Everything else is there to back you up when you have a little bit of doubt. Cool, so what we're gonna do today, we're gonna reduce the counts, so it's not gonna be so intense. You're gonna inhale for your baseline, hold your breath for your baseline, and then chant Om for 2 to 3 of your baseline. Try to hit 3. So you inhale for 6, hold for 6, chant Om for 18 counts, and then hold for 6 again, or chant Om for 12 counts, 2 or 3 in terms of the chanting. And in terms of like, how does that associate to KUMBHAKA? When you sing, when you chant, you're exhaling. And so you're just adding sort of song to the exhale. Inhale, hold, chant Om, hold. And that's it. When you're chanting Om really quickly, pronounce yourself. The Om is going to be 2 to 3 of your baseline of your inhale. And so when you chant the Om, right, you want to pronounce it. You want to exaggerate the shape of your mouth. Om. You're spending time with the because when you chant the O, it vibrates in your belly and chest. When you collapse the mouth and press the lips together, it vibrates in the head. And so again, it's all about sensitivity. You want to feel that full range of physical vibration ascend up your torso and into the skull. If the counting while the chanting is a bit too much, just freestyle, just chant Om for as long as you can, essentially. Just have fun with it, feel the vibration. We're going to do this for about 15 minutes or so. And the point is sukshma. We're trying to feel the body's bliss as it vibrates. Yeah, okay, cool. So let's get into this, everyone. Happy to see you. Strong seated position. Wrists rest on knees. Pay attention to your lines. Tall spine, straight arms. Spread your fingers very, very wide. Feel the top of the hands now pointing down and the top of the forearms also now pointing down, and engage both to spread your fingers wider. And what you'll feel in the webbing of the hands and maybe in the skin of the palm is a stinging. And in that stinging, vibration. And so that is sukshma. Into the physical world, Maya, the dream of reality, which is real, it's made of matter, exists on a spectrum, gross to subtle, obvious to less obvious. This sensation in your hand is less obvious and more subtle, and because of that, it is more consistent and remains less changed over time, meaning our bodies will change and have changed since we were infants to now. But whether we are infants or elderly, this vibration will be there because it is subtle. Bring a random finger to each thumb. These subtle sensations tend to be euphoric once we find them, which proved to yogis that when you enter the heart of the physical world, when you enter the subtle dimensions of existence, it leans towards blissfulness rather than pain. It leans towards goodness. DHARMATA, the ground of physical existence, is light. Now start to find your baseline. Deep inhales into the belly, swell into the chest. You're just breathing normally, inhales and exhales. When you're ready, engage KUMBHAKA, 1 to 1 to 2 or 3 to 1. chanting Om as you exhale. And so you're feeling some small voice in your head might judge you, judge the sound of the voice. Push that aside. It's all about feeling. As you chant the O of the Om, feel it in your belly and chest. As you collapse your mouth, spend time there and feel the skull vibrate. Now start to increase your kumbhakas. Add 2 or 3 to the retentions. Build the CO2. And as that sense of suffocation builds, which is a fairly gross sense, a fairly physical sense, attempt, like an archer, hitting a bullseye, to feel sukshma within that suffocation, to feel that same vibratory pleasure within that discomfort. Because it's all physical, except for your awareness. And what you should find in that storm of discomfort is this tiny golden thread of peace. That would be DHARMATA. After this next Om, just breathe normally, hold perfect stillness, and aim to feel the echoes of those vibrations, the echoes of that resonance, somehow still maneuvering through the body. Use your imagination if you have to. The echoes of the Om. Try to deepen your focus. Again, imagine, if you can't sense it still, a moving, buzzing, living body. If you feel it, when you feel it, it feels good. Again, the more subtle physical reality becomes, the more uniform, the more stable it is, and that stability is experienced as blissfulness. DHARMATA, the ground of physical existence, is light. Lock on to that. One round of maximum KUMBHAKA. With your inhale, reach your arms up and over your head, interlace your fingers, index fingers point up to the sky. Hold your breath for as long as you can, exhale as slowly as you can, hold your breath for as long as you can. One full round. And then take one final inhale and hold. After that second internal retention, just like we always do, with dramatic grace, release your wrists to your knees. As the suffocation builds, feel the vibration. Hopefully now you can more easily associate that suffocation with sukshma, with subtle bliss. The body is far away. Even the blood is far away. Your mind is locked onto DHARMATA, smaller than atoms. Good work, good work. Those that are holding, keep holding. Those that have released perfect stillness, just feel the buzzing body. Enjoy it. Interoception. Perfect stillness. Push the world out. Feel more. From time to time, when the mind wanders, when thoughts manifest, redirect your thinking into Kaivalya. Sense how alone and isolated you are within yourself, and again, how beautiful that is. The sanctuary of your practice. Protected in a cocoon of sukshma, a cocoon of subtle pleasure. With dramatic grace, bring your hands to heart center. Somehow boost your sincerity again. The best way to boost our sincerity is to be honest. Satya, I suffer. I desire. I am also dissatisfied, yet I look for peace. Sense your wholeness, but sense that that wholeness, that identity, it's all external to this inner space. Take a deep breath in and quietly chant an Om to yourself. Thumb knuckles to third eye center. Back to the point, the impossible point. Can I recognize, can I make contact with the only truly intangible thing? Can I extract it from the web of tangible things? Can I extract it from the web of my identity, of my preferences, of my cravings, of my thoughts, of my body, of the world, and behold it? Focus on the sukshma, the buzzing vibration of your thumbs touching the skin of your forehead. And once you sense it, the greeting of yogis, namaste. With an exhale, release your wrists to your knees. With an inhale, open your eyes, hold on to that space. And again, feel the full spectrum, far inside and far outside, subtle and obvious. Serious and sincere, dilate your pupils, blink your eyes, wash it away.